if we want to go ahead and take the cube root of a variable. Now, as I mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, when we're taking the square root and the cube roots of numbers, the easiest form that I like to do with square roots and cube roots is to have these numbers written down, and knowing them. Obviously, Jonathan, put that away, please. Put that away. Put that away. Thank you. When we were first going over, I remember when I was first learning my multiplication tables, the first thing I learned was square numbers, how to multiply numbers by themselves. And these should be numbers that you guys have written down and you guys have ingrained so you can take the square root of them. However, it doesn't do much help for you, though, when we're dealing with variables. So what is a way that we can work with variables? Well, I'll show you guys the long version first, and then I'll go through the short version. The long version is to simply say, how can we get x to the 8th by multiplying by itself? So I could rewrite this as the cube root of x times x times x times x times x times x. Do you guys agree with me? X to the 8th is the same thing as x multiplied by itself 8 times.
Yes.
Does that make sense? All right. Now, the next thing, you didn't even offer me any. The next thing is, remember, the cube root of x to the cubed is just going to equal what? X, right? Or that's the same thing as the cube root of x times x times x. Right? Because that's what cube root. X times x cubed is x times x times x. And the cube root says what number multiplied by itself 3 times equals x. So what I'm going to do in this version is look for how many times am I multiplying x by itself 3 times. Because every single time I multiply x by itself 3 times, I can take the cube root of that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because the cube root of x times x times x is just x. So I circle 1, 2. So what is the cube root of x times x times x? X. What is the cube root of x times x times x? X. Cube root of x times x times x? X. What is the cube root of x times x times x? X. And then I don't have 3 of them. So I have to leave this under the radical. Now we can simplify. X times x outside the radical is just going to be x squared times the cube root of x squared. OK? Now, that is the long way. But you guys can do this for every single problem. All right? Yes?
So would it be x squared equals?
No. It's x squared times. This is all separated by multiplication. So it's x squared times x cubed. Now, the other way that I prefer to do this is just like how you guys wrote it like this. Circling them like this gives you x. I prefer to write it, though, like this, x cubed. And the only thing you have to do for this one is just remember our rules of exponents. When you multiply exponents, you do what with the powers?
You add.
You add. So would you guys agree with me then? I could also rewrite this as x cubed times x squared. Would you guys agree that this is the same thing? What's 3 plus 3 plus 2? Yeah. And what's the cube root of x cubed? What's the cube root of x cubed? What is the cube root of x cubed? X. There you go. You get the same answer. It's just a little bit quicker.